Chapter 2. Hello, this is Saurabh Maheshwari speaking, taking over from his Lordship Keshav for only a short while. I am on my way to meet my fiancée Prerna on Karwa Chauth. I took an auto rickshaw to New Friends Colony, a roughly half-hour ride from Malviya Nagar, and rubbed my hands to keep them warm. Left? Prema's message brought a smile to my face. Yes, in an auto, I replied. Come soon, I'm hungry. Yes, I replied. Drive fast, bhaiya, I told the auto driver. I looked at my phone and smiled. Could there be a luckier man? My fiancé decided to keep a Karwa Chauth fast for me, even though we aren't technically married. Isn't she sweet? Haven't eaten anything all day, no water even. Prerna messaged. Have something, my cheeky. No, the moon rises in less than 30 minutes. You will be here by then. That's when I break the fast. I love you, I texted. I love you too. Another message came immediately after. I have something special to share with you. What? Come and I will tell you. What is it? Something unbelievable but special. I just found out. I called her on video call. She picked up. She was in her room. I saw her super cute face. She shook her head. What? I said. Don't look at me like that. I want you to see me in my Karwa Chauth clothes for real when I am fully ready. Wait, what did you want to tell me? I will tell you. Come quickly, no? I'm hungry. I'm coming, I replied. She cut the call. As the auto rickshaw waded through the daily traffic, I thought of Keshav. So, Mr. Keshav Rajpurohit has allowed me a tiny space here to tell my side of the story. This is after he has given you his version. He's already brainwashed you, I'm sure. He has perhaps told you that I'm just an oversensitive CC on his way to becoming a hand-packed husband. That it is me who overreacted. My oh so cool Keshav was just making some sarcastic comments and I should just get over it. Oh, and I am sure he told you I slagged off on work at CyberSafe and ignored Z detectives completely. Good, believe him. I fell in love. That's what happened. For the first time in my life, just looking at Prema's smile makes me melt inside like a chocolate lava cake. When Prerna calls, every word she speaks is a happiness injection right into my veins. Call me a romantic fool. Unlike Keshav, I have never had a long term girlfriend or any short term hookups. Did he tell you about his Tinder addiction? Yes, it is an addiction. He slept with 10 girls since last year. He doesn't even know their last names. In some cases, not even the first. You can call him a stud or whatever. To me, it is a sickness. He can do whatever the hell he wants, but he has to understand I am different. I have one and only one Prema. That's what it is going to be for the rest of my life to make me happy. I skipped work a few times. I took a trip with her. I helped her in her work, of course. Mr. Keshav upset that I wasn't giving him 100% attention, slugged like a baby. He has forgotten how I used to cover for him at Chandan classes, our previous job, when he would skip work to meet his girlfriend. I would not only make good excuses for him but also finish his assignments. Even at CyberSafe, he once had a Tinder match who could only meet in the afternoon. He dashed out of the office and I covered for him and told Jacob he had a family emergency, of course. When times comes to return the favor, Mr. Six Pack bitches and whines about my relationship. And then he crossed all limits one day when Prerna was at home. You want to know what happened? Why have you stopped? I said to the driver when I realized we had not moved for 5 minutes. TIT signal takes a long while here, he said. I checked the time. It was 7:24 p.m. according to Google. The moon would be visible at 7:46 p.m. I had some time. I did not want Prerna to wait in hunger a minute more than she needed to. I just had to get there before the moon did. Of course, the moon didn't have to deal with Delhi traffic. Where have you reached? Prerna sent a message. 20 minutes away. IIT signal is a pain. Cool, take your time. I will try not to faint. Hungry? My gulab jamun? On the roof, all decked up, waiting for you. Moon there? Don't see it yet. I will reach soon, I said. Take the stairs. The back door is open. The signal turned green for the third time and my auto finally got a chance to cross. I checked my pocket for the gold necklace I had bought for her. 15 minutes later, the auto entered the quieter lanes of New France Colony, passing the metro station and then into A block. Prerna lives in a 400 square yard koti or bungalow located in a lane of posh bungalows. A narrow lane passes behind these kotis, allowing access to the back entrances. Entering from the front door would mean meeting the entire Malhotra clan. Neither Prerna nor I wanted to be ridiculed for being this lovey-dovey couple that keeps a Karwa Chauth fast before marriage. We had decided she would keep the creaky metal back door open for me instead. Right here, I said to the driver when we reached the back lane. Main entrance is in the front, he said as he fumbled for change. It's fine, I said and stepped out. The grey evening, cold breeze, and dim light made the alley seem darker than usual. I looked up at the sky. No moon yet, or at least I couldn't see it from where I was. I gently opened the back door and shut it from inside. I climbed up the steps from the ground floor where the Malhotras had their main living room. I passed the mezzanine level, which had the kitchen for the entire house. I heard the whistle of a pressure cooker and could smell rajma being made. This is a gift. I can tell what is being cooked in a kitchen far away by just breathing. I guess the Malhotras were readying themselves for a post Karwa Chauth feast. I paused to catch my breath on the first level. Maji, Prerna's grandmother, stayed here with Anjali, Prerna's cousin from America, and Prerna's aunt Bindu, who taught in a school and looked a bit like a scary headmistress with her spectacles, stocky frame and curly hair. After a few seconds of rest, I climbed up to the second level. Prerna lived here with her parents, Ramesh and Neelam, along with her 14-year-old brother Ajay. I panted as I climbed up to the third floor. Aditya, Prerna's father's younger brother, occupied their entire floor. He lived alone but also had his music studio here. I could hear music being played inside. I reached the final few steps that took me to the terrace. I checked that my sweater and kurta were in place. The climb had made me sweaty, but I had carried my cologne with me. After a few liberal sprays, I pushed at the already open terrace door. Mehndi laga ke rakhna, doli saja ke rakhna. I sang the song from Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, the movie which had a classic rooftop Karwa Chauth scene. The sky had become pitch black. The slight fog made the shimmering lights of the New France Colony houses twinkle in the background. As I sang the song, I looked at the sky. There it was, the fourth day of the moon, which all the married ladies in Delhi would be flocking to see along with their husbands tonight. In this case, husband to be in 3 months. Lene tujhe agori. I continued to sing. I looked around for a Prerna dressed in traditional wear, metal survey in hand, smiling shyly. She does that. Goes shy on me when I least expect it. Prerna Babu, I'm here. You can eat now, I said and laughed. No response. Near the terrace door, I found a switch for the light. I flicked it on. A yellow bulb lit up brightly. The entire terrace became visible. Still no Prerna. Jalebi, where are you? I said a bit louder. In one corner of the terrace, a red and golden dupatta lay on the floor. I went over and picked it up. It lifted in the wind and the mesh like fabric hit my face. I removed the dupatta from my face and looked at the floor again. 3 feet from me, I saw a metal stairway. I lifted it up and turned it around in my hand a few times. I looked at the moon through it. As Prerna was supposed to say it, had she gone down to use the restroom? I took out my phone and dialed her number. There was no response. I heard horns blaring from down below on the main road outside the house. There seemed to be a traffic jam. I looked over the ledge of the terrace. Traffic had stopped on both sides. A crowd had gathered below, right in front of Prema's house. I tried to see what had happened. I couldn't figure out much in the darkness. I dialed Prema's number again. I couldn't reach her. I typed a message. Where are you, Bebu? Waiting for you on the terrace. She didn't read it, only one tick on WhatsApp. The message didn't even get delivered. Aren't you hungry? Come eat. I sent another one. Even this message went undelivered. The noise below rose in volume. I still couldn't figure out what was going on. Maybe something had happened and Prerna had gone down to join the crowd as well, I thought. I turned towards the terrace door to take the stairs down. Before I could reach the door, Prerna's father, Ramesh, and two other men came running upstairs to the terrace. I recognized Gupta and Arora, neighbors of the Malhotras. Hello, uncle, I said before Ramesh interrupted me. Saurabh, you were here with her? With Prerna? I came to meet her. Where's she? He didn't respond. He touched the dupatta in my hand. I found this here, uncle, when I came. Gupta took the metal save from my other hand. He showed it to Ramesh and Arora. Malhotra ji, he said, you better not let this boy go. Go where? I said, perplexed. Uncle, what's happening? I just spoke to Prerna, I said to Ramesh. He remained silent as we walked down the stairs. Gupta held my elbow tight. Uncle, why are you holding my arm so hard? I said to Gupta as we reached the ground floor. On the ground floor, we crossed the living room, the front patio, and the main gate to come out of the house. There was still a crowd on the road. Traffic remained choked. A few cars were trying to take U-turns away from the jam. Many of Prerna's family members stood there as well. Saurabh? Neelam auntie, Prerna's mother, saw me first. She wore a shocked expression. She looked at me as if she knew my name but could not replace me. The crowd had formed a circle on the road. That was when I saw Prerna, face down on the road, in a red and gold lehenga that matches the dupatta I had in my hand a few minutes ago. Her shoulder length hair covered the back of her head and the side of her face. Even in the darkness, I could make out the pool of blood around her head. The people around her stood in absolute silence. Prerna? I said as I ran towards her. Stop, Ramesh said and grabbed my wrist. Uncle, is she hurt? He shook his head. What? I said. She's gone, Ramesh said, fighting back tears. My heartbeat paused for a second. I looked at the others, stunned. Aditya and Prerna's brother Ajay stood with frozen expressions. Next to them, Neelam sobbed as she held Bindu, who herself was visibly trembling. I just spoke to her. I screamed loud enough to startle everyone. Aditya came and placed his muscular arm around my shoulder. He patted my back unsteadily. Aditya Chachu, what happened? I said. She fell down, Aditya said, pointing to the roof of the house. I extricated myself from Aditya's grip. I ran up to Prerna. I went down on my knees and touched her hair. Prema, I'm here. Let's eat, I whispered. Gupta and Ramesh came up to me and tapped my shoulder. The police are coming, Gupta said. Better we don't disturb the body. Police? Body what? I said. She needs to be taken to a hospital. Come back, Saurabh, Ramesh said, his voice soft yet firm. Both of them held me and helped me to stand up. They pulled me back a few steps. Gupta had self assumed the role of guarding me. He gently held my right hand with his, sort of like a light leash I could not get out of. Neelam and Bindu were crying loudly by now. Some elderly ladies came around to console them. I saw Ramesh bite his lip to fight back tears. Ajay hid his face in Aditya's chest. With the family in shock and sorrow, the neighbors tried to determine what to do next. Let's move her to the side, Arora said. No, we should wait for the police, Gupta said. I felt numb. This had not just happened. Maybe I took a nap at home in the afternoon. This was a horrible dream. I will just wake up and rush out to meet Prerna. We will feed each other sweets on the terrace looking at the moon. Blood from her body was traveling to my feet. I stared at its slow progress in the darkness. I looked at Prerna again, properly. Her hands had henna on them. She had specially applied it for Karwa Chauth. I told myself to wake up. Nothing is wrong with Prerna. My mind went into a blur as it disconnected from reality. I could see the scenes around me but could not make sense of them. I heard the siren of a gypsy. The police were here. I saw cops speak to Prerna's father. One of them took pictures of the body from the top, sides, and several close ups. He also took a picture of the house and the terrace. Shall we move the body aside? Arora said. As colony president, he was keen to disperse the crowd and get the road functional again. Come, let's lift her. I heard someone say. Almost like a robot, I joined 6 other people who lifted Prerna's heavy body. Not the side of the road, let's take it inside, a constable said. She was an it now? They took the body into the house without any clue where to keep it. First, they kept it on the patio. After some intense discussion, they told us to lift her up again and take her to the living room. We had no idea where to place her there either. After all, a living room is for living people who can sit anywhere on the sofa, easy chairs, or even the dining chairs. Where do you place a dead person in a living room? Someone suggested the carpet. Blood still dripped from the body, leaving an airy trail wherever we carried her. Bad dream, I told myself even as my eyes followed the bloody track. Place newspapers. One of the neighbors had an ingenious idea. Old papers were spread on the rug in multiple layers. On papers of Delhi Times, which had an interview with Varun Dhawan and Alia Bhatt, we placed Prerna on her back. I could see her face now, covered in blood. Her nose, cheeks, and one of her eyes were badly wounded. They would take a long time to heal if she was alive. I added to myself. A cop told us to move aside. What happened to her? I said to the cop. She fell down. What else? Head must have burst, the cop said. He placed her arms and legs in a respectable straight position. Dead bodies don't just lie down gracefully, they have to be put in place. The cop went about his work as if he were arranging clothes on a shelf. I spoke to her 20 minutes ago, I said. The constable looked at me surprised. When life ends, it doesn't even take a minute, he said. I looked at Prerna's face again. With the blood, dirt, and injuries, she looked almost unrecognizable. I put my hand on her closed fist. Don't touch her, please. We have to collect evidence, the constable said. She's my fiancée, I said, my voice breaking for the first time. I'm sorry, the constable said. He covered her face with a sheet of paper. A Swachh Bharat ad stared at us. Get something better, Gupta said. A few minutes later, someone brought a white cotton sheet. They used it to cover her entire body, including her face. I couldn't see her anymore. It was then that it hit me. Prerna is gone. She would never come back. She fell from the terrace. She went there because of me. Odd sounds escaped me as I began to whimper. Some neighbors tried to calm me down, but I got steadily more hysterical. A senior cop walked up to me. Were you on the terrace? He said in a firm, cold voice, unaffected by the tragedy around him. His abrupt question startled me. I stopped crying but did not respond. Three other cops had also come into the room. The neighbors started to leave. The few that remained spoke to Prerna's family members, offering them their support and condolences. I am talking to you, the cop said, his voice louder. Yes, I said. Why did you go to the terrace? He said. I noticed his name tag, Vijendra Singh. The epaulets on his shoulder told me he was an inspector. To meet her, I said. You met her? No, I didn't find her there. Did you meet anyone else in the house? I felt uneasy. I didn't like his line of questioning. I had my own detective agency. I knew where he was going. I also knew that when it came to cops, it was best to speak as little as possible. No, I said. Why? I came in from the back entrance and took the stairs up. Why terrace? I took a deep breath and looked around me. Everyone seemed busy, either crying or consoling. We had a plan to meet upstairs, sir, for Karwa Chauth. She would see me and the moon and break her fast. The inspector narrowed his eyes. Karwa Chauth? Yes, sir, it's today, the fourth day of the moon, when married women fast for their husbands. I know Karwa Chauth. You aren't her husband. Victim is not married. Victim is called Prerna, and she is the love of my life. I wanted to tell him. We were getting married in 3 months. She decided to keep the fast as a gesture, I said. He said in an unconvinced tone. I repeated the sequence of events. I told him how I took an auto rickshaw, spoke to her, and came up to the terrace only to find it empty. And then uncle came and brought me down. That's it, I said. That's your version then, Singh said. That is what happened, I said. He went, again. He turned to Ramesh and started asking him a few questions. I felt alone in that room, surrounded by people, many of whom were my would-be relatives. A car honked outside. Aditya went up to the front door and walked to the patio. He saw the occupant of the car and opened the gate. A white cab came in. Anjali stepped out. She had her backpack with her, which seemed heavy and huge compared to her skinny frame. Hi, Adi Mamu, what's up? She said in a cheerful voice with the hint of an American accent. Aditya nodded with a serious expression. What happened? Anjali said. She looked around. Something was clearly amiss. Aditya didn't respond. Both of them walked into the living room. She noticed the body on the floor, covered in a white shroud. Someone had died. What happened? Anjali repeated. Is it Maji? We lost everything. Prerna's no more, Ramesh said, swallowing a lump in his throat. Anjali walked up to the body, bent and lifted the sheet from the face. She saw her cousin lying there dead. Prerna Didi? Anjali said in a shaky voice. Aditya pulled her aside. She was fine, Anjali said, now in tears herself. Ajay, somewhat lost until this point, went up to Anjali. They both hugged and cried. The room felt like it was underwater, drowning and sinking and going down. When things are calmer, we would like to speak to each member of the family, Singh said to Ramesh. Ramesh did not respond. And him too, Singh said, pointing at me. Ramesh looked at me with blank eyes and half nodded. We will wait outside for a bit. Let's talk once more before we leave. Singh said to Ramesh. The cops left the room. I leaned against the wall, staring at her body. I didn't know what to do next. Should I leave? Am I allowed to leave? But am I even supposed to stay? I needed someone, the one and only person in the world who could help me think through this situation. I took out my phone.